Matt Brstowski. I'm retired, but I'm a scientist. I've been working 40 years in oil and gas as a geophysicist, and currently live in Houston, Texas.
Albert Ewell, and as of right now, I'm a retired military.
My name is Grace Valwiz. I'm a NICU nurse. I grew up in Tacloban City, Philippines, and I currently reside here in Houston, Texas.
Will Sanson, and I'm a writer-editor from San Antonio, Texas.
John Howdy Shell, truck driver. I'm from Sherman, Texas, North Texas.
My name is Michael Bug. I'm a registered nurse, and I live in San Antonio, Texas.
So all my life, I've been exposed to the Bible. I can say that I had read the Bible cover to cover at least once.
I grew up as Baptist, and my dad was a deacon, and he was also a prayer warrior. So every night we would always gather together as family, and we would pray and then read the Bible. Every Sunday we would always go to the church.
And then after that, after joining the military, it was like if you go, you go. If you don't, you don't. And then until I got married, then it was different. Then we started looking for churches and stuff. The last one that I remembered was the Assembly of God. That's the one.
I had a church. My grandmother, my mother, same church, my sisters, attended services, but I never was baptized in any other church.
I grew up as a Protestant. We would attend Bible studies, Sunday school. So I would say I was somewhat religious growing up.
I was raised as a Roman Catholic, and I practiced that. I was an acolyte. I also read the gospel during the Mass, pray almost every day.
We believe that our salvation comes from our accepting Jesus Christ, our personal Savior.
I've always believed that God is a rewarder of those who seek Him.
Well, I wanted somebody who was religious. Yeah, and that's what I looked for, somebody with a religious background, and my background was religious background too, but I wasn't, totally into the religion then.
I had a childhood friend that was a Church of Christ member, him and his family. He didn't celebrate a lot of the different holidays that we did growing up. So, for instance, like Christmas. I didn't really question it much because he was a good person. He was a good friend.
We didn't hear about it before. Because before, we wasn't looking for no church. We were satisfied with what we was and what we was doing.
I never heard about it before.
When I finished my nursing, I moved to Quezon City in Manila, and I would always pass by the Commonwealth where the big INC church was. I was like, oh, that was a very pretty church, and that was really big.
I did not know about the Church of Christ, and so there was no pre-judgment or knowledge about the church.
I had never heard of it.
As I started getting older, I started becoming friends with some of the brethren there. But when I was actually approached about listening to the lessons, that's when things had changed at that time. It kind of took me by surprise. I was a little hesitant. So when I was told that, right, you're not going to be a Church of Christ member right away. It's something that you're going to listen to the doctrines, and then it's still your decision.
When I look back at how I was invited to the Church of Christ, my first reaction was, what? You don't believe that Jesus is God? I was very surprised by that.
When we got back to the Philippines, we just tried looking for a church to go to there. And then all of a sudden, she found this one. She went and talked to some people that she knew. And they all told her, yeah, just come on. Then they invited them over to the house. And then that's when we started talking to the minister worker that we had.
Well, I was hesitant at first. Kept making excuses or whatever. I thought I was out of place at the time. Well, in construction jobs, everybody's, totally rough. And language, that was really bad.
My exposure to Olive, we became pen pals. Well, I used to go back to the Philippines, and then I would be very impressed with her religious acumen and also her religious faith, how strong it was. I said, well, I'll go to worship service and see what it's all about.
Right after my son was born, every time I called my father, he started introducing INC to me over the phone. So it was already 12 years. One time I called him over the phone and he didn't sound so lively. He was like, oh, I didn't really bore much fruit. And even my children, I couldn't even convince them. And so I like, okay, for your sake, I will try to visit the church. That's when I started Googling the church.
A Filipina lady at my work invited me to get to know someone in her family. I thought, well, I'll just go over there, the Philippines. And I needed some different thinking because divorce is hard and it had been hard for me. I didn't know at the time they're Iglesia Ni Cristo members. They gave me magazines of the Church of Christ. And I looked at them, and I'm starting to grasp a little bit. And she said, well, we might think about this seriously, then you should go visit the Church of Christ there. And I said, this is not in San Antonio, Texas. I've never heard of this, but it turned out it is in San Antonio, Texas. And I went to visit.
Came in, started teaching the lesson and stuff. But when he started teaching it, he was teaching it in Tagalog. After the first 3 lessons in Tagalog, then he said he's gonna have a special lesson for me and my kids, because me and my kids was English. And it went pretty good. And the lesson was understandable. It was really understandable. And we have never heard it that way before, the way we was hearing it.
My husband, me, and my son was about to go to the Wednesday church service in the Baptist church where we used to go. So I told my husband, I'd like to check out a church. And so we were already right at the gate when he noticed that it was INC. And so he like, that's an Iglesia Ni Cristo church. No, we're turning around. And so it took me another 3 weeks to master the courage to come back and check it out by myself. It was February already when I came in and walked in with my son, and then the church minister, Caramel Aquino, passed by. He said, it's a good timing you came in here because the CMDPS officers are here. The officers are all in the medical field. It was Sister Olivia Castillo and Cabong Castillo who approached me.
After the service, I met a ministerial student, and so I had my first introduction to the church with him. One time after the lesson, there was some kind of disturbance in the street. So they actually drove me back to my hotel, so they actually made sure I was safe. You see the relationship of the brethren, they take care of each other, and you see the impact of the locale and the community, and it's a positive impact on the community, you can see that.
I remember the first time I attended the church service. It was actually live streaming with our executive minister, Ka Eduardo Manalo. After the church service was finished, I called my father. He was so happy and so proud of me. And so I said, okay, I'll just keep attending since, it's still all about God.
When I first went to meet the minister, we talked about doing lessons right there. I was surprisingly not resistant.
What will the one who has the firm hope of salvation?
But I will say, one thing that was impressive in the service is, of course, a very clean, nice building.
Even the chapel was beautiful.
Wow, such a big building.
I thought it was very orderly. The deacons and deaconesses keep the orderliness and solemnity of the worship service.
Oh, it was different, because in the regular churches that we go to, you sit where you want to sit, and most of the people sit to the back. And most of them sit together with the women and stuff.
And the men sit on the left and the women on the right. I was used to everybody just sitting all together.
Very methodical in the service and so forth.
I did always remember how organized it was, right? So you can kind of expect the same type of worship service, the sequences.
It was helping me to focus on how I'm worshiping God.
The hymn singing was very solid.
The songs, they really touch you, they got hit home, really. I thought.
When you're singing the hymns, you're reading the words, and these words are inspiring. And then when you have the choir singing and then everybody else around you singing, you can really feel it a lot more.
The hymn singing in the churches that we all visited, it was a lot of yelling and hollering and jumping up and down and stuff like that. But this one, you can feel the song. All the hymns that they were singing, you could just about feel them.
I felt that holiness, that solemnity that I think I had been missing before.
So I've seen many different ways that people worship. In the Iglesia de Cristo, I felt comfortable, being there. I think that was kind of reassuring to me, just knowing what to expect and being able to concentrate, on the lesson that was being preached.
That's the firm conviction of many members.
The lesson is so clear and direct and straight from the Bible in the question and answer format.
Well, like the questions, they would break it down into the Bible's answers, in not just one or two, but several.
I remember in my former religion, they would read out of the Bible. It would be maybe one verse for the whole church service, and then after that, they would just go off explaining, their own story, right? Their own background, their own life. Whereas here, it's question answer, with the question Bible answer. I'm always about validation. You hear something, but I would like to hear the reasoning, the validation. And the Bible validated it, right? Coming straight from the Bible. So I think that's what really motivated me and kind of inspired me to search more, right, for the truth.
When my dad told me, if you really want to know about the church, why don't you start Bible lessons? And so my sponsors texted me and said, if you want to attend the lessons, feel free to tell us.
With the doctrines I was learning during the Bible lessons, it's a real comprehensive education. It causes a person to question, why are we doing this or that if it's not in the Bible? And I had always believed we should do what's in the Bible. And I started to question, okay, I agree with this teaching, and why are we in this other place doing something different?
So I would say the primary doctrine which convinced me was the nature of Jesus. After reading, so where did this come about that people think Jesus is God? And it's not in the Bible. And then you start learning about the evolution of the church and the councils, the voting, about what the doctrine would be. So the fact that Jesus was used as a man, although with a very important message for the world and a transforming message, really did it for me in the Church of Christ. The fact that was very much adherence to what's in the Bible convinced me. That was the main thing, I would say. Yeah.
My turning point was, after I finished the 28 lessons, I was immediately tested. And so it was one Sunday morning. I told my son, you want to come with mommy? And he told me, no, I'm coming with dad. Right there, I was broken. But then I told my sponsors that I will not be attending the church service anymore. I'm going to where my family are. But of course, when I was there, I was like asking myself, and I was praying like, Lord, please lead me to the right church with the right faith and the right doctrines. It was Saturday evening, and one of the finance officers texted me. And so I came over. So at that point, when I came and they prayed over me, that's when I realized that I was asking to be redirected to the right church with the right faith and the right doctrines, and I was given the opportunity to go back. That's when I said, okay, this time I will try my best to come back and to join INC.
The turning point of why I joined the church was the prophecies that I learned during the Bible studies. So just hearing the prophecy of the last messenger in these last days, Brother Felix Y. Manalo, and hearing it from the Bible and I think with it sinking in and realizing that, this is the true church, this church was prophesied. And then seeing that opened my eyes as to, this is true, that I found a church, but not only a church, it was the true church.
For me, the turning point was when I heard that one special lesson. And that lesson is, it's about the way God tells time. And also it explains on everything that people never knew about. It comes to truth. And then it makes you wonder, wow, I should have been here a long time ago. And I wish I have.
The turning point for me joining the church was a realization that part of the doctrine was that Jesus was a man, not a God, not part of the Trinity. It made sense from what's in the Bible, what you read otherwise. And so that was a turning point for me.
The turning point was, I was tired of my way of life. I was looking for a better way. And I knew church was the way to go. And this one is so in depth with the lessons. I learned so much. It did open my eyes. I was like, there's no other church but this one. So that really changed my mind, forever.
The turning point, why I decided to join the church, was the truth captured me. The truth, I heard the truth and it was clear, and I was ready to commit my life to being a member of the Church of Christ. When I made that decision to leave the religion that I'd grown up with, my family always, they'd never actively persecuted me, but they just have never gotten on board either. Some friends have just said, how can you believe this? I haven't given up. It's just I want them to be more receptive than they've been so far.
The only trial for me was I had to keep going back to China and then back to the Philippines for the lessons and so forth. So it wasn't until I finished working in China, after 3 years, I could spend several months in the Philippines, and I was able to finish all the doctrine, attend the work. You have to be a regular attendee of the service anyway, so I think they could see that, and then that all came to fruition.
My oldest sister is the one that took care of us, okay? And then she said, it doesn't matter long as you're in the church. And it's like a lot of people says, they get negative remarks from people. My family wasn't like that. My family is, you're in church. That's all they worried about, you being in church. And I tried to get some of them to understand this is different. They need to listen.
For me, the most difficult part in the process of joining was my husband. He doesn't really get upset when I go to church on Wednesdays and Sundays. He understands. The only thing that he is asking from me is to be with him during his 2 days off. So I tried to balance it.
Regular construction workers, teasing. Oh, he's religious, he's gonna be Jesus freak or whatever. I'm like, you wanna know the truth, just come listen to one lesson, one or two. It might take more, but eventually they'll hopefully understand the truth.
None of my family members at the time were members, right? So I think it was a big shock for them to see me change my way of life, right? It was a little difficult. There were times of persecutions, right? Questioning me so I can doubt my new belief. Over time, I think they kind of accepted the fact that, I was in the Church of Christ, right? My look on life was different. My beliefs were different. I think just knowing that this church was prophesied, right? Just knowing that this church is in the Bible, right? We have the prophecy there that shows. And I think having that foundation, that knowledge, and that belief really kept me strong.
So I was baptized in the Central Temple. And that was in December 29th, almost at the end of the year of 1987.
I remember it was summertime, it was 1999 in Wapahu.
I was baptized August 28, 2022, and my son followed September 25, 2022.
It's April 30th, 2016, in the local of San Antonio, Texas.
I was baptized October 15th, 1988. My whole family and part of her family.
I was baptized in Colorado Springs. It was a very, very spiritual experience. After I got baptized, when I came back up, you just feel like you're a new person. A lot of things have changed, just the way I look at life. Just knowing that as a Church of Christ member, we have God, He has our back. Just knowing that I can pray to God and He'll hear my prayer, and I feel better, right? I feel that relief.
Before I was in the dark place, partying, drinking. I don't do none of that now. And spiritual, I mean, it's lightened everything, even the way you think about life. It's changed my way, so for the better.
Prayer is still strong, always prayed anyway, but prayer is still very strong for me in the church. And the fact that Olive and I can pray together, and we pray together with the family too. Meditation is very good for the soul, but it's also very good for you to sort out issues, what's important, what's not important.
We are more like inclined on, practicing our faith. It's very important to practice our faith.
There is more joy, there's more clarity, there's more truth, and there is the hunger for other people to know this. I think the zeal is greater than when I was in the other religion I was in.
It's changed for the best to me. Everything is more relaxed. I don't have nothing to worry about. Because, like I say, it's going to happen.
I'm not very worried about the pandemic or whatever happens in the world. I mean, the world's the world. Just put your faith in God.
As far as the epidemic, first I would pray, for solutions, and just have faith. It always gets better.
The things about wars and the gun violence we have today is troubling, and yet our Almighty God is over all of those things. And so, I think my life has changed by having a strong worship service experience twice a week.
You go to church twice a week. It's a time of solace, reflection. You listen to important lessons and so forth. So I think those carry you through the troubles, I would say.
The words of God is the food for our soul. And so if we are not enriched with it, then our soul will get malnourished, and then, we will be making poor choices in life.
I think one positive thing from COVID, and this is an example of Brother Eduardo's concern, is that he would reach out during the COVID with these video worship services, and even continues them now, not on a regular basis. So you can tell he's concerned. He wants to reach out. He wants to be visible. He wants people to know that he's praying for them and looking out for them in the lessons.
We can take the experience.
Since the studies that we had, it tells us what's going to happen. It helped us in many ways, okay? In the many things that we do, because it makes us wants to perform more. Wants to do more for the church than we can.
Knowing that whatever happens in this world, I know that there's something else after, that there is an afterlife, there's a holy city. Knowing that, that assurance, I think really helps me to not have too many worries of this world.
When you're invited to the Church of Christ, it's because that person loves you.
If you're ever invited, accept, right? Just listen to what the teachings are, just what the Church of Christ is about.
Open your heart and your mind. Get to understand what God really wants you to know.
The truth is out there.
You want to know the truth, come to this church and you will find out the truth.
You may have questions. Bring those questions. And that way you can have the reassurance knowing that your questions, your thoughts, anything that you had were answered from the Bible.
There's good in the church. There's a strong foundation of doctrines that's based upon the Bible.
As you listening, God is telling you what He wants you to do. Just follow.
Our life here is temporary, and at the end of our life, that's gonna be permanent. Our salvation is our priority in life. It is very important to secure our salvation.